Hello everybody, more Hearthstone card reveals, and today we were treated with the delight of Shaman, and boy has Shaman got a set of cards. I would honestly, on my first looking at it again, this is just to, make you salivate, that it's tantalizing, that's what I'm going for. I think this is the most exciting set we've seen so far. Obviously, if you're on Twitter, you probably have seen a lot of these cards already and already know where we're going with this, but anyway, if you haven't, here's the show. First off, we were shown incredible value. This was the revealed when the set was announced. 3 mana shadow spell that discovered a 4-cost minion. You set its attack and health to 7. Pack filler. When you really work this out, you're basically spending 7 mana for a 7/7. Now, it isn't quite the same as that if the 4-cost card has a better effect of being a 7/7 than a normal 7 mana 7/7 would be, and there are some minions in there, but they're not big enough. It's not going to be a guaranteed pick, so you're basically spending 7 mana for a 7/7, which in current Hearthstone ain't good enough. Anyway, this kind of left a big open book of what Shaman was going to be, because this card doesn't really, it doesn't really fit anything. I would probably say a control value Shaman deck, and boy if we got value Shaman. Shudder Block. Who would have thought it? I'm so dumb. Shudder Block was such a classic card for Shaman. Of course there had to be a Shudder Block. 6 mana 5/5. Miniaturize. Battlecry. Your next Battlecry triggers 3 times, but can't damage the enemy hero. Alright. This is insane value. It is a lot to unpack. First and foremost, obviously, Kalamos with Invocation of Fire. By the way, Kalamos is rotating into the core set. Scar the Catastrophe. Both of these deal damage to the face. They won't work. So you're looking for this Battlecry to give you a lot of value, and then use that value to beat your opponent down instead. You have to do another step along the pathway. Okay, so what are the Battlecries we're looking at right now? An interesting one, which I picked out before I saw all the other cards, because Shudder Block was announced this morning, and spoilers, there are some better Battlecries. But Inza could make the rest of your Battlecries... the rest of your overloads for the rest of the game, cost 3 less. And that's quite a lot of value, right, if you're going to run some sort of overload Shaman deck. And there are quite a lot of, overload cards in Shaman right now, and actually some pretty good cards. You can put Marut into it if you go into a singleton deck, and by the way, I think this could be in the Highlander control Shaman deck. I think we just slot straight in there. Instead of getting, just 2 elementals in your hand and 1 to the field, you'll get 3 to the field and 6 in your hand. That's a lot of draw! Now, again, it says your next Battlecry, so you don't have to be on that turn. You could play Shudder Block and set up for a future turn, and also the mini, which will be a 1 mana 1/1 variant of this. You can always hold that in your hand to play it on the same turn, so really you can play almost any Battlecry with this that you want. Just bear in mind that the more expensive ones will take probably 2 turns to set up. They will definitely take 2 turns to set up because you'll need the mini anyway. Droid Skull Deputy was another interesting option. I was kind of thinking it's along the lines of maybe you're going to be some sort of Nature Shaman spell damage deck. I've not really gone through the core list and stuff like that and the rotations for Shaman. I have to be honest with you. I don't think Nature Shaman will work anymore because Bioluminescence is rotating outright. But, maybe they could make up for the spell damage loss by just generating a ton of damaging spells. Then, one that I think may come to fruition. This is 3 excavations in 1. You play your Shudder Block, you play your Kobold Miner afterwards, 3 excavates, draw 3 cards. And one of the criticisms I had for Excavate Shaman, other than the fact that I think the treasure is a bit weaker than some of the rest of them, it's not terrible, it's just weaker. Some of the Excavate enablers, especially the spells for Shaman, are really, really bad. Or at least aren't good in Shaman in the case of the dual class one, so any way to make the the Excavate effect of a Kobold Miner go for 3 times is honestly welcomed for this class. So Excavate Shaman may, well, actually not may, they will definitely run Shudder Block. Flint is another fun value proposition. You get 3 random quick draw cards and you have to play them this turn and it repeats the effect. Obviously better if you have the 1/1 block first. You play Flint and then you got 7 mana and 3 cards to just go pow, 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 pow with quick draw cards. Is that going to be a thing? Honestly, maybe if you're absolutely desperate. And then there's obviously some shenanigans you can pull with Fizzle. For example, if you play the Shudder Block, you get the mini version in hand. If you then play the Fizzle, you'll get 3 photographs, i.e. you'll get 3 minis in hand. Then obviously it's just a game plan from then of playing like a mini. Well, sorry, playing a mini while holding a mini and having a Fizzle. And you can just generate infinite cards. Infinite hands. Infinite value! Anyway, so honestly I could actually see Fizzle making this deck as well. That ain't it in its entirety, folks, though. Ziliax Deluxe 3000. You remember this guy? You can put Battlecry on him. Summon a copy of this. That's really good with Shudder Block. Obviously, you can choose and decide what you want your other module to be. If you put Pylon module on this bad boy, you will get 4 Ziliax 3000s that base would be 5/5s, but then all get +1/+1 on top of one another. So they'll be 9 9s, which is, I think in total, what is the stat line? Oh my god, my brain breaks. You know what? Let's not worry about the Shudder Walk. It is 7 mana for 36/36 of stats. Plus Shudder Walk. That is, or Shudder Block, sorry, I'm going to just keep calling it Shudder Walk, sorry. Shudder Block. That is actually insane. Truly, truly insane. I think this is another card that will definitely go into your Shudder Block deck. And some decks simply just won't be able to answer that, right? It's just going to be too big a board. If your opponent doesn't have the immediate answer, it's lethal next turn, so watch out for that. You could also throw in the Perfect module. That's then a 9 mana. Sure, you only get the... Sorry, you still get the 4 copies. You don't get them with as many stats as you did before, but it's a huge chunk of health to heal back up. So again, you might want this, right? Maybe you don't care about this big OTK setup, which, you know, is slow because they haven't got rush or charge or anything like that. They are just basically big boys, right? Instead, you get these nice taunt minions, these divine shield minions. You trade off your opponent's board. You heal back up like by 6 per swing, and you got 4 swings, so you can heal back 24. That's a lot of healing, and you're leaving on so much value on the board still. Delightful. You can also do the recursive module thing. I've already shown a way of going infinite anyway with Shaman. But, of course, you could generate 4 of these, all with their own recursive modules, and then 4 more Ziliax Deluxes will go back into your deck. I don't think this is what will be the second module for this Ziliax. I think you will definitely want more value then and there. You can generate long-term value elsewhere. Anyway, we should also talk about... Oh, I forgot, sorry. Before we get to the other thing we should talk about... Just as a reminder, I mentioned on the Warrior one that bot face will improve as the quality of miniatures goes up. And actually, Shudder Block being a potential miniature you can get from bot face, I think actually elevates bot face up slightly, because if you ever generate the Shudder Block mini and you have Inventor Boom in hand, that is going to destroy people. Truly, truly will destroy people, as your board will fill with mechs that are all pretty, pretty strong. Some will have death rattles, and they will just start smoking everything willy-nilly and doing 20 damage on death rattles. It is going to be disgusting, so watch out for that. Getting bot-faced, Shudder Blocked. Okay. We said those battle cries. They were all good battle cries, right? There was some good... Wrong! This is the battle cry you want. Hagatha the Fabled, the other legendary. 5 mana 4/4. Battle cry. Draw 2 spells that cost 5 or more. Transform them into slimes that cast the spells. Now, when I say this is the card, it's actually the slime that you want, right? Obviously, if you triple the battle cry of Hagatha, you're drawing 6 cards and generating 6 slimes. Just in case you're wondering, the slimes take a stat line equal to the cost of the spell. So, for example, it shows here for Altered Chord, which is a 5 mana spell, it becomes a 5 mana 5/5, right? Okay, so... yeah, you could generate this big draw, but more realistically, you're going to want to copy the spells, right? Get 3 copies of a spell, 3 casts of a spell. Obviously, with Pack the House, that's too much value, right? That's an insane thing to get with Fairy Tale Slime, because you will get a 7 mana 7/7 you'll play. They'll generate a 6 cost card, a 5 cost card, a 3 cost card, and a 4 cost card, of course. Sorry, I skipped one. And we'll overload you for 2. Big whoop. That is a huge board for 7 mana. Truly, truly frightening board from Shaman. You can also load in Crash of Thunder, right? And this would get benefits off the triplicates. You play down your Fairy Tale Slime with Crash of Thunder in it, and it goes off 3 times and does 9 damage to all enemies, split up as 3 separate damages, which is really good for token decks that have sticky minions in it. Where it's really, though, going to shine is with this spell, Wish Upon a Star. 7 mana arcane spell. Give +2/+3 to all minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield. Oh boy! Miss Caller is crying right now. The closest card to this we've had in the past is Survival of the Fittest, which was the Druid card. 10 mana, give +4/+4 to all minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield. Actually, if you compared these two cards, you would argue that Survival of the Fittest is statted better. And I do agree with you. It's very, very slightly statted better in favour of Survival of the Fittest. But don't get twisted on this too much, because at least Wish Upon the Star, you can play it early, you can weave it into another play a lot easier than Survival of the Fittest could. So it has that going for it. Obviously, the dream is you Hagatha the Fabled your Wish Upon a Star, and then you get the slime with a Wish Upon a Star in it, and you play Shudder Block, so it goes off 3 times, and you just win the game. You win the game! It's that simple! You do this, and your opponent goes, well done, good play, well done. So yeah, you'll give all your minions +6/+9 in your deck. This will be a more minion-intensive deck, I believe. Obviously, there will still be some spells, so you may miss the Hagatha the Fabled trigger, but maybe this is just so much value. Maybe even it separates as its own archetype, away from these control Shaman decks and just towards this minion-based like value Shaman, almost like the Taunt Warrior decks, right, with Black Rock and Roll. Also, by the way, Wish Upon a Star isn't a legendary card, it's a neutral, so you can run 2 copies of this. And in theory, Hagatha the Fabled could draw both of them, in which case you would have 2 slimes with this effect in it, and you would have 2 Shudder Blocks, effectively, the Shudder Block and the Mini. So you could do +6/+9 times 2, i.e. +12/+18. At that point, it is just a meme. It will happen to you, you will feel sad. It's just too many steps, it's too slow. But yeah, that is tantalizing, right? That is insane value. So I do think there is going to be some sort of, maybe it's going to be the Excavate Shaman package where they'll run a lot more minion heavy. They'll have some big hitter spells. You play your Hagatha, you hope it draws Wish Upon a Star, which you'll stack the deck so it's more likely to draw it, or even it's guaranteed to draw it. If you only run 3 spells and 2 of them are Wish Upon a Star, you'll always get it with Hagatha. Yeah, and then you'll just try and win the game through brute force of minions. I think that is a little bit too grog, though, for my liking. We were also shown another big spell, which you could conceivably Magatha. Once Upon a Time, a nature spell, 6 mana. Summon a random 3-cost beast, dragon, elemental, and murloc. That's some pretty good value. That is 12 mana worth of critters for 6. And honestly, it can be compared very closely to a card that's in standard right now called Pack the House, which for 7 mana generates you 18 mana worth of stuff, but you overload 2 on it. So if you kind of like, I know it's not quite the same, but if you subtract the 2 overload from the general mana cost, you're getting roughly slightly more than twice the mana you spend for it in terms of value. So I would say Pack the House is probably statted better than Once Upon a Time. However, Once Upon a Time is a little bit more specific and a little bit more predictable than Pack the House is. I've not gone through the full pool of beasts, dragons, elementals, and murlocs yet. I did have a look through dragons, and currently, from what I can tell, these are the only 2 dragons this can actually pull out. Razor Scale, which would be fine, or Starlight Whelp, which is fine. It's just a 3 mana 4/3 stat line. But yeah, we'll have to look as the set fully comes out to see what the pools of cards you're going to be drawing from this. Are there any truly insanely high rolls? There's so many elementals in the game right now that some of the elementals would be pretty decent rolls, but not fantastic. Murlocs right now, some of them are decent, not fantastic. And there's some beasts which are very good. There's some less good. So you get the deal. I think it's a little bit of a step below the other spells. I'm actually not sure it'll see play. Just in case, you didn't think all this was bonkers enough, they gave a tutor for Battlecries. 3 mana location, Fairy Tale Forest. Draw a Battlecry minion, it costs 1 less. You get 2 uses of it. Yeah, pretty good, honestly, pretty good. Not completely bonkers. You are effectively spending 3 mana for draw 2 cards, and it's 2 Battlecry minions, so it's a slight tutor on that, and you're also getting the 2 mana discount, presumably, right, unless you're running, I don't know what you'd be running. Are there only 0 mana battle cries in the game? You're almost always going to get this 2 less. So it's like 1 mana draw 2, but it's very, very slow. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Insight, which did see a lot of play in Priest for tutors. Admittedly, for the... His name is gone. The light elemental. He's not light. He is not luminous. He is... He's not prismatic. What was he called? The one that reduced the cost of all spells by 1. He was such a classic priest minion, which I think will also get a do-over for this set. Radiant Elemental. Holy shit, I got there eventually. There was a tutor for Radiant Elemental, typically. And you would draw a minion, you reduce its cost by 2. So instead of getting 2 draws and each one costs 1 less, you get 1 draw, it costs 2 less. It's kind of ballpark similar. I think now in the terms of power levels, it's a slightly weaker Cathedral Atonement in the sense that Cathedral Atonement, you could use it 3 times, you would get the draw 3, and the +2/+1 onto a minion is probably worth around the 1 less mark. It's not to say that I think this is bad, I think it's just a little bit below standard of a card, but it's probably going to see play in this archetype just to pull out these truly insane Battlecry minions. Anyway. We also got more Battlecry minions. Sand Art Elemental, 4 mana 4/4 Elemental, Miniaturize, Battlecry, give your hero +1 attack, and Wind Fury this turn. Alright, obviously the first thing I was doing was looking at weapons. By the way, this came out before... actually, no, it came out at the same time as Shudder Block. Never mind, I tell lies and untruths. So obviously you can Shudder Block this to get +3 instead. You will still just get Wind Fury. I think that is just a bit of a meme, to be honest with you. Anyway, the only weapons in Shaman right now that don't have Wind Fury or are, rotating are Jazz Bass and Tempest Hammer. I mean, they're fine. Okay, you might say, what about Ignis then? Yeah, sure, I think this would be the way to go if you're going to generate this attacking Shaman deck, this weapon Shaman. You forge, you get an Ignis. You don't necessarily need to rely on getting the Wind Fury. In fact, you probably don't want the Wind Fury. You can pick a better option like dealing damage, and then you just artificially get Wind Fury later and you smoke your opponent in the face. Very good. Also remember you get the mini, which is a 1 mana 1/1 variant of it, so you can weave that into any future turn with your weapons. You could even go like a little bit more insane. You could throw something like Runefield Golem onto the field, discover a weapon from another class, and then you can start picking out some actually pretty good weapons that reward you for swinging multiple times. I've picked up some of the value ones here rather than the aggro ones. Brian Fang's Sword would give you another 2 mana discount on your 2 attacks, and Quick Pick would just be used and done, and it would draw you 2 cards along with everything else, which is, that's pretty nice value, right? Also to be noted, the only way I believe right now Shaman can gain attack is through Turn the Tides. Turn the Tides is a pretty insane card though, so don't poo-poo it. And this is giving you +3/+1, which is, 4 quick mass, and then you're Wind Furying for 8, so there is a threat of a big chunk of damage. Sadly, I just don't see this archetype working. I think you'll go for some sort of big value Battlecry Shaman deck, and Sand Art Elemental will not be a part of it. What I do think will be a part, again, of this big Battlecry deck, Shining Sentinel, 7 mana 3/7 Elemental with Taunt, Elusive. Battlecry, summon a copy of this. Just as a reminder, Elusive is the effect that it can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. And we've seen a card very similar to this in the past called Winged Guardian. It was in Druid. Instead of summoning a copy, though, we had Reborn, which is almost like summon a copy of it. You just don't have both at the same time, right? If you statted this up together, you were spending 7 mana for... if you take the Reborn as another 6/1 on top of it, you were getting 12/9 of stats in total, and it was Taunt, and it had Elusive on it. So it was 21 stats in total. Shining Sentinel, you get 20 stats in total, so it is really close in terms of power level. And Winged Guardian did see a decent amount of play when it was released. What I will say about Shining Sentinel is its stats are in all the right places, right? You want your Taunt Elusive minion to have big health, just be really hard to remove. Winged Guardian was a little bit more aggressive than Shining Sentinel, so yeah, I honestly I can see Shining Sentinel seeing play in this value, maybe a slightly more control-orientated Shaman deck. Also, by the way, it's a Battlecry, so obviously Shudder Block, if you play Shudder Block and then Shining Sentinel, you'll get 4 copies of this guy. And some decks, again, just simply will not be able to deal with this. Now, you could also argue that it could be Wish Upon the Start as well, in which case it's a 5/10 and you should block it, and, the permutations are insane. It's like any card you play Shoulda Block with a Battle Cry, as long as you run like these big value Battle Cries, are just all insane. All the options are insane. As I said, if you get 4, 5, 10s with Taunt Elusive, literally some classes won't be able to deal with that. So it actually might see you rise to this card, Reno, just being put into decks. Like, they're gonna have to have an answer for its giant board state. And other classes are threatening to have these big turns where they summon a big wall of minions. And again, simply some classes just will not be able to answer this. So watch out for the power level of Highlander decks going up, just so they can weave Reno into the deck. Anyway, let's get to some slightly offshoot cards now. We have Baking Soda Volcano. 4 mana, fire spell, lifesteal, deals 10 damage, randomly split amongst all minions. It has Overload 1. Obviously, this is a nod back to Volcano, which was the classic Shaman control card. That did 15 damage randomly split amongst all minions, and it had Overload 2 on it. This was a really efficient control card back in the day. Obviously, you didn't want to play too many minions on the board, and you would play your Volcano, and the 15 damage would go across your opponent's minions, and would typically be like a board clear of a fairly small-sized board. Baking Soda Volcano, on the other hand, it has 5 damage shaved off it. It's 1 mana cheaper, and it has 1 less Overload, but it's still 5 damage, so you're removing a bit of the control element from this card. And actually, the way I'm looking at this right now is it's very similar to just playing 2 Minefields. Funnily enough, Minefield was another card that saw playing Bomb Warrior, which was a bit more of a control value deck. So maybe Baking Soda Volcano does just make the cut of this deck regardless. But yeah, it's almost like 2 Minefields wrapped together, right? That was 10 damage for 4 mana. And on Baking Soda Volcano, you get, as a reward, lifesteal and as well, so a bit of health back, but you pay for it later on with the Overload 1. I've seen some people on Twitter raving about this. Zeddy, I think, said it was one of the best removal cards he's ever seen. Personally, I would prefer Volcano over Baking Soda Volcano. I think just the Volcano having an additional 5 damage is better. But it's not to say, again, Baking Soda Volcano is bad. Volcano was pretty nuts back in the day. This is still removal with 10 damage, and you're getting 10 health on top of it. That's pretty good, right? And again, it's just really grinding aggro decks into the dirt right now, this card. Okay, this, I believe, is the final card from Shaman. A bit of another outlier. Pop-Up Book, 1 mana nature spell, deal 2 damage, summon 2 0/1 frogs with Taunt. Just as a reminder, the frog token is this guy. It is the thing that if you hex a minion, it turns into this. It's a pretty classic little boy, right? So no surprise we've seen some frog shenanigans in the set. The best way I can see this card right now is comparing it to something like Mirror Image. I think it's better than Mirror Image, and Mirror Image didn't really see any play, so good. It's a good thing that is the case. Instead of getting 2 0/2s with Taunt, you get 2 0/1s with Taunt instead. And as an exchange, you get the 2 damage, which can go face. Normally, I would say this card is actually pretty insane, or at least if it was within the last year, I'd say it was pretty insane. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, I don't think Nature Shaman is going to be in a particularly good spot. And actually, looking through the set, there's not a lot of spell damage Shaman enablers. I could be proven wrong, so I think Pop-Up Book is going to sit there in this. It might make this value control deck again, just because it is a 1 mana spell that slows the game down a little bit. Remove a guy, summon 2 0/1s, protect the face. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think it definitely would have seen play in Nature Shaman. Unfortunately, obviously Nature Shaman won't be a thing anymore. But I think it's a card that we'll watch out for in the future on. I definitely think if they ever try to enable the spell damage Shaman archetype again, and I only assume they will do because they did change the button back to give you the Wind Totem and not the Strength Totem anymore. So I was actually expecting a bit more spell damage support from the Shaman side of things. But this card could rise from what I think will be your 25th or 30th card you slot into your deck into one that is the key component card of the deck. Anyway, that is the Shaman reveals done. I think if I go back to the Mind Banks, if I go back to my Mind Palace, I think tomorrow is Warlock, but I can't remember for certain. I'm 83% certain it's Warlock. because I'm actually very interested in what they're going to do with Warlock and Priest, because historically those decks have been pretty toxic, and I'm not talking about Toxic Sludge Warlock right now. I'm expecting to see some handlock support. I'm really hoping we don't see some sort of Demon Seed mill your entire deck support. And we have already seen a mill your entire deck card, so... Welp. Goodbye.